We definitely worked hard. I think anyone that wants to be a realtor, it's not about a relaxed schedule if you actually want to make it.
Everyone's got a real estate story. Some are wins and some are total nightmares. We are here to give you the keys to what's really going on in Vancouver real estate, from what it actually takes to become a real estate agent to what it really costs to build a home, and all the stories in between. This is the real estate of things, where nothing is off the table and everything is negotiable. All right. Our guest today, another real estate agent, as if Vancouver doesn't have enough of them. But our guest today, friend of ours, Mr. Brian Higgins. And thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I will say from personal experience, Brian is the hardest worker in the room, and he's got the sweatshirt to prove it.
Yeah.
Coming from OrangeTheory and in the office. So from the gym to the office, he's the hardest working guy I know.
Yeah. And always the kind of opening thing is, how'd you get into real estate?
Born and raised in North Van. I kind of grew up near Edgemont Village. And I remember from a young age, I would be excited for Thursdays because the North Shore News would come and there'd be a home section in the North Shore News, literally probably from the age of 6 years old. So I'd wait for the Thursday edition and see the featured home. And on the way to a sport that I was playing, I would make my dad drive me by that house. So it was something inside me from a really young age that just drew me to it. My father was in sales and sporting goods sales. And I remember kind of like towards teenage years, reading the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books and all of that. And, predominantly one of the sort of statistics that always stood out was, 9 out of 10 millionaires made their money in real estate. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, that sounds pretty good. Maybe I should go towards there. Yeah, I studied urban geography at UBC and wanted to go towards real estate, not as a realtor initially, more as a real estate investor. I always viewed real estate as an asset, and I would look at it in different ways than many. So I think as the city was moving, I wanted to move with it and kind of got in that way. When I was 24, I went back to my father and I said, I want to buy my first house. Give me some money. And he said, I didn't do that for your siblings. So I didn't like that. A couple months later, I was able to buy my first place and it was $214,500. I didn't have money for a one bedroom. So I bought a studio in Cole Harbour and I'd signed up for the real estate course literally the month that I did that purchase. But at 24 years old, I didn't feel confident enough to write the final exam because I thought no one was going to believe this 24-year-old kid that happened to like real estate a lot. So when I got some life experience, did some construction work, met one of my life mentors, Tony McGill, the co-founder of ITC, and walked on literally hundreds of construction sites that he was building throughout the Greater Vancouver Regional District. And then in 2011, I was 31 years old and I said to my wife then, I said, I think it's time for me to jump into the career and go from there.
But you got to think, I mean, like you said earlier on, when you were a kid and driving around with your dad and seeing these houses and things like that, like I would say that you were, like you say, built for this and it's truly your passion and you enjoy it. And like, I know myself in the evening, sometimes I'm just on Paragon, i.e. MLS, things like that, just looking at listings, even if we don't have a client for a specific product, just looking at what's out there and things like that, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I even when I started in 2012, I started as YVR for sale because I didn't want to be a realtor at a realtorsname.com. I thought that there was kind of a ceiling in doing that. So I started YVR for sale and my tagline then was your address, my passion.
Right. How many years did you work on your own? Because we know you have a team, but how many years did you go at it alone? And then how did your team kind of evolve and build? And
so, 2012, sort of midway through was that my first entry into being a realtor. I did 6 deals that fall. I was solo and just kind of, hustled and did a lot of open houses. I think open houses for any realtor that's listening is the best way to meet new people for business. There's no doubt. I didn't want to use my network. I felt that I wanted to kind of go at it alone and be able to show people that I'm not just a flash in the pan and actually work for it. 2013, pretty active. I think I did 14 or 15 deals that year. Come 2012, we started to get a lot of foreign capital into the city. And so that started the wave of what I always term as the new market. And 2014, market was running pretty hot. One of my clients wanted me to meet her niece that was working for a marketing company. And I met Amy Leong and we ran basically from the tail end of 2014 and the market really moved a lot. So, I mean, we were doing 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 117 deals in 2017.
Holy moly.
Just her and I. So Yeah, we definitely worked hard. I think anyone that wants to be a realtor, it's not about a relaxed schedule if you actually want to make it. And in business in general, anyone that's built a proper business that has been truly successful, it doesn't come without grit and determination.
And then fast forwarding a bit, and how did it kind of evolve? And
yeah, let's see. One of my really good clients, we came, it's fun because real estate, you meet a lot of cool people of all different backgrounds. Yeah. Right. And like one of my clients was doing like paintball, and we had met, and he knew lots of realtors, but he's like, I want to hire you because you're different. And you just make really cool like friendships and relationships in real estate. I find that fascinating still to this day. Amy and I had parted, and, Jackie had, I'd been encouraging her for years. I'm like, dude, you're perfect for real estate. Like, I don't know that you're going to, be as successful in paintball sales globally as you could be in real estate locally. So then we kind of merged, and he was running a Van Global group, and I was running YVR for sale. So then YVR Global was born, and that ran well for a couple of years. And then he got headhunted by a group out of Ontario to do pre-sale. Didn't really like that concept for me. I just felt that my knowledge in the resale market was tried, tested, and true. So I wanted to stay that way. And so we separated from there. And yeah, I mean, teams in real estate are tough because in a busy market, you need people that want to work. In a soft market, people don't want to work, but they want to make money. And so, again, so it's never, I think, something static. I think it's always evolving at the end of the day. So right now we've got a crew of 6, and yeah, I mean, it's a tougher market the last 3 years than we've come out of. So I think you will see people fall off, and you'll see other people come in, and it's just part of the natural progression at the end of the day. When I first started, I mean, I remember selling condos at 66 West Cordova for $335,000. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you get a call, and in 2024, I sold the most expensive condo in all of the city. Yeah. In 2023, I sold the second most expensive condo in the entire city. Yeah. So it's fun how business can grow. I'm very much in a growth mindset. I don't like to turn down opportunities. I like to see doors open and see where that can go at the end of the day. I think it's easy to close off, but those are your only barriers that you're closing off for yourself.
The fact that you are now marketing the most expensive condo in the city, that didn't happen by mistake. And anybody who spends 5 minutes in a conversation with you and hears your product knowledge and your passion for it quickly learns to respect and admire the way you are and what you've done. Or anybody who spends 5 minutes on a treadmill trying to keep up with you quickly learns the same lesson. So it is really cool. And I feel like every time I have the pleasure of hanging out with you that I should bring a notepad and kind of soak up some of this knowledge. It's inspiring.
Yeah. So, what is kind of spinning into what Colin was saying? I've heard that you love your OrangeTheory and your morning workouts and stuff like that. So when are you going? How often are you going? And what's the routine for you? What's a daily routine? Yeah, as a whole kind of thing.
Totally.
What does the day of Brian look like?
We've got a crazy 4-year-old and a pretty awesome 8-year-old. So life is busy. Monday to Friday, my alarm goes off at 4:56.
Okay.
So
4:56, not 4:55.
In the AM.
So you just get that 1 extra minute kind of thing?
That's my first buzz. 4:56, 4:57 is the second one. By then I got to get up. Okay. I have my phone alarm set on our ensuite vanity for 5 a.m. and I don't want to wake the family up. My nephew got me into OrangeTheory back in 2017 when we were living downtown, and it's just kind of stuck. At first I was like, group fitness, that's not for dudes. He's like, bro, if you like running, you like this. And I went, and I think I've done over 1,250 classes since. So
holy shit.
Last year I saw a record. You did 250?
I'm not at those numbers this year. I'm closing in on 150 for the year right now. But yeah, it's just good functional fitness. And I think for men, I think for women, I think it's, once you become a parent, life is busy. Yeah. And if I want to get some sort of fitness in, and to me, I think it's a mental cleanse, if anything, too. 100%. Start the day with something hard, no matter what the day throws at you, it's probably not going to be that hard. Yeah. So everyone can handle different levels of load in theory. And so I kind of view myself as a warrior. Like I'll just strap everything on my back and keep going. I remember pre-form buyer tax, my wife was looking at me. She's like, am I going to see you? Like my call volume in the spring of 2016 was probably north of 230 calls a day.
Holy shit.
So 2017, we did 117 deals in 2017. So you do that. You're basically doing 2 deals a week, every single week for the year. More than actually. Yeah. Right. So it's, So, you're moving. But, it's right now, obviously with the kids where they are, I do want to be present as well. Yeah. I take the choice to not have dad just be the provider at the end of the day. I don't do open houses. Open houses, yes, they're great in hot markets to showcase the home, and it's going to be sold in a week. Right. I remember in 2022, we had one on Grand Boulevard where we had 187 showings. We sectioned the showings into specific times so buyers could see other times. And we had 29 offers, and the property sold 33% over the asking price. But opens are efficient when it comes to hot markets. In slower markets, opens are for realtors to make business. At the end, you meet other owners in the neighborhood. You meet potential people looking at homes. You're in front of people, right? So, I mean, at the point that I am right now personally and for my family, I choose to be at my son's soccer game. Yeah. I want to take my daughter to dance. I want to take my daughter to soccer in the afternoons on Sunday. Yeah. So I consciously make the decision that if a client says that you have to be at the open house, I'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm not your guy. You get me, but you get me with my team. Right. Right. If you have a problem with that, there's 14,000 other people that would love the opportunity.
That's awesome that you've earned that. In a previous career, I had worked to free up my weekends, got there. And then with this career, still in the growth period, still running opens, but it's the goal. And this whole career was kind of a choice to try and balance my life out from where it was before and be a lot more present as a partner and a parent. But that's kind of the goal. Hearing you say that is like, that's on my vision board, is to not work the weekends.
There's a big hustle culture in our business, right? And we see that in social media and the rest, and people can show that they're working all the time, and that's great. But like, we're also human, right? And we're also parents to children. We're partners to wives. Like it's one of those businesses. I mean, the divorce rate in real estate is very high.
Very high.
You can take that aspect and go, okay, yeah, go work all the time, be a provider. But at the same time, I mean, we don't know how long we're here on this earth. I lost my mom when I was 17. I want to be able to have special times. I want to be able to go on vacation. It takes a while to get comfortable setting boundaries. And I by no means am I perfect at it, right? Like I did do one showing last weekend. So I did drive downtown I picked up a key set and it did one showing, but did a showing and got an accepted offer and multiple offers that night. And I just picked up a deposit check today. So
nice.
There you go. Right. So realistically, you got to pick and choose where to go. But yeah, I mean, I think open houses are great, but clients that expect open houses upon open houses upon open houses in markets like we've been in for the last 3 years, that needs to be discussed prior so that they don't chain you to something.
Well, it's all about the whole strategy. Managing expectations is the whole strategy. The growth and evolution of your personal into team business. You're now at 6. Your office is downtown. We know you as the authority on luxury condos, all things stratified and condo development. We know you do a lot of detached homes and things like that, but you guys are in Cole Harbour?
Down on Marina side. So we've got an office beside Davy at 135 Davy Street. But yeah, I mean, we're out of Prompton. It's fun though. I get realtors call me all the time. Hey, can I ask you a question? And like I had a really good top producing realtor last week ask me a question about one of her clients that had put a pretty significant property in Yaletown under contract. And I said, let me get you this full story. I went back through my contacts and I said, okay, what's the deal? What's going on here? Because she's like, this is what the realtor is saying to me. I'm like, I'll get you the real deal. So 44 hours later, I came back to her. I'm like, this is why they're selling. This is what happened. And that's it. And she's like, oh my God, thank you. She's like, that's why you're the Yaletown guy at the end of the day. So I don't know. It's kind of fun. Like in the younger years, we used to go party in Yaletown. And then I look at Yaletown, I'm like, wow, you can make millions of dollars in Yaletown. Yeah. So yeah, from drinking your faces off at nights at Bar None to be like, hey, you get to walk into some of these penthouses where you're just like, how did I get here? Once you get really knowledgeable on product, it's nice to be able to share that knowledge with others. Because, I kind of view life like more in abundance than what one can rake at the end of the day. I see a lot of people that it's all about themselves and it's all about themselves. I think helping other people, like we're in a service-based business, but also helping other realtors. Like if she called me last week and said, hey, can you find out the details? I'm like, oh yeah, my dad's got a good friend in the building. Let me give him a call. And he put me in touch with somebody on Strata and they're like, this is exactly what happened. So I could come back to her and be like, hey, this is the real deal. Yeah, right? Because unfortunately there's stuff that sometimes gets said that it's like, well, does that have weight or is that real? Yeah. Right. And so it's one of those things, I think, if anything, the more people that you can help out, likely there's going to be good aura around that and life can be, beautiful from that.
It pays dividends too. Like the next time you come across that realtor in a transaction, she's going to remember the favor and it'll help ease up a transaction that you're
100%.
Question for you, just kind of switching gears a bit. Foreign buyers tax, we talked about that a little bit earlier. And now the ban with foreign buyers. How has the market shifted, specifically in condos? How would you say the market's really shifted from when foreigners were allowed to buy condos to present day where we have this ban? And who are you seeing, as a pretty general question, but who are the kind of bread and butter condo buyers today? Yeah,
I mean, it's fun because you can go, I mean, again, I've been at this since 2012. So now I've got sort of some years of history to be able to look back on in theory. 2016 pre-foreign buyer tax, that was a market that we will never see again.
Okay.
Right? That was probably the boom of the condo market, in all honesty. A lot of foreign money that was coming into the West Side, and it created a massive flow through in the marketplace. And then people even went into West Van because they're like, oh, Vancouver's too hard to build. Let's go to West Van. We can build there a lot faster. So yeah, it was interesting. The condo market really started to move as of what was the fall of 2014. And a lot of that was just more money that was coming into our city. Those boomers were selling those houses. So they were buying condos for their kids, or they were buying condos for themselves. The foreign buyer tax stalled our market. And the condo market, it took about 4 months for the market to absorb that. So by November, we were back to business. So it really wasn't that dramatic. It was whoa, what's going to happen to my money? Okay, we're back to business.
But did you see foreigners still buying and just accepting that tax? Or what was the kind of landscape of that?
At the end of the day, I think most people either had PR or somebody in their family had PR. So whoever had the PR was the one buying the property. I think the more detrimental part of our market has been the civic taxes in Vancouver, right? The empty homes tax, when it was first introduced, was going to be a small tax. It was going to be 1% for foreigners and 0.5% for British Columbians, I think is what it was. Or no, maybe that's the speculation vacancy tax. But no, the municipal tax was going to be 1%. You were going to pay 1% empty homes tax based on the tax assessed value of your property if you left it empty. The challenge with that is we went through a couple mayors in Vancouver, and one of the prior mayors wanted to move that to 5%. Anyone with global wealth that does global business, and I've been able to walk into a lot of the big penthouses, and we're currently marketing the most expensive penthouse in Canada. The concept of putting a tax in front of them, predominantly they'll just say, no, thank you. Beautiful city. I don't want to be a landlord. I'd like to come here in the summertime. I worked for a German couple. He was a retired tax lawyer in Germany. Wonderful. And he had bought a presale in 1999. And I got introduced to him from one of my other clients that I had sold a big unit for. He was so upset. By then the province had announced the speculation tax. And this fellow was like, look, I'm from Germany. I work in New York. My wife is Japanese, and Vancouver is our meeting spot. I'm not a speculator. But it makes most sense for me to fly to New York to Vancouver and her to fly from Japan to Vancouver. And this is where we spend our time together.
Right.
And now your province is telling me that I have to pay, $60,000 a year in additional taxes between empty homes tax and speculation tax. He's like, I have to sell my property. Right. So, and none of those taxes have solved any sort of affordability. It's difficult because you've got Canada's underused housing tax. You've got an increase in the foreign buyer tax. And then, of course, federally, they came out with a foreign buyer ban. Typically, the governments on all levels react after the market is already pulling back.
Totally. By the time it gets pushed through legislation and everything, they've already missed the point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
You're collecting in a hot market probably $10-15 billion in the province, and it's going into general revenue and getting wasted. Why not take 30% of that money annually and be like, here, Kelowna, here's X dollars. And then they would be able to borrow from it and be like, hey, we've got this amount coming for the next number of years. We could borrow and we could build. And then you could actually do social housing. Yeah. And you could actually provide housing for those that can't afford housing. Yeah. Right. Like it's crazy.
But do you see the landscape of, again, specifically the condo market in Vancouver? Do you see that it was better market for kind of everyone pre-foreign buyers tax, pre-foreign buyers ban? Or do you think that there is some good that's come out of this?
I think it's tough because you look at how the developer is built, right? So, I mean, typically you'd have more units on the lower floors and less units on the higher floors. And, in certain towers, it was sold at a time where you had none of these taxes. So it was nice to have a 2,400 square foot unit that you could come to with your family, right? Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of multi-generational families that would keep a property in Vancouver, but that's not allowed now, right? And then it's tough because now you've told them to go become a landlord, and they rent a property at $7,000 a month that's worth $4 million, and they pay maintenance fees and taxes, and they get no draw on their money. So eventually they just get tired of it and sell it. Some of them have paid it. Some of them have paid. I'm working for clients right now that they have paid the empty homes tax and the speculation tax ever since it came out.
Yeah.
And they finally came to me this year and they're like, this is enough. We've got to stop.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's tough because you're forcing people to say only locals can buy, and locals too. Like, what happens when you get to your retirement age and you're like, hey, you know what? I've been so diligent my whole life. I saved my 18% a year from my RSPs and I want to go travel the world for a year. Sorry, sir, we're going to tax your house here in Vancouver because you're not going to be in it for more than 6 months this year. Like, explain that one to me.
Yeah. And then protect the people that rent it from them.
All right.
Residential landlord.
And then it's tough too, because when the NDP were elected, Spencer Herbert, who was a West End MLA, redid the whole Residential Tenancy Act. Yep. It's not called the Residential Landlord Act, and it's there to protect the tenants. But when they first floated the idea of 4 calendar months notice, until the banking regulator stood up and said, well, the mortgages aren't good for that long.
No, exactly. The rate holds for 90 days. How can we, I remember that whole pushback that went off. It was nuts. It was a half-baked idea.
Yeah, I mean, the ban is a tough one. I've had a lot of Americans come up when Trump was elected. I mean, our office is right near the Yaletown Roundhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we'd love to buy. And I'm like, are you Canadian?
Yeah.
And they're like, nope. I'm like, can't buy.
Yeah. Conversation over.
Yeah. See, have a nice vacation.
Yeah. Fairmont's down the road.
Yeah. Your dollar's pretty strong, but you can't use it. You can't use it up here.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we were chatting earlier, and whether it's us calling you or other agents or, some of your buyers looking for the advice, the professional opinion, things like that on condos. What determines for you in the condo market, what is a good building? What is not a good building? What are kind of the key factors that you're paying attention towards when a buyer says, okay, I have $1 million. I want to buy a, let's say 2-bed, 2-bath condo with a view, things like that. What's your strategy and how you're kind of going about that?
If a client's looking, I'm always cognizant of like viewscape, because you have to look at what can be developed around you at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And I hear a lot of realtors walking in, oh, this view is amazing. Oh, it's here forever. And it's like, buddy, unless you're looking at park, come on, man. Like the city's going to grow by 1 million people. You don't think there's going to be more amalgamation and more towers done and more density done over time? Yeah. So I don't like it when people try and make claim on something that they can't truly back up for eternity in theory, right? Code, year of built usually kind of stayed newer than the 2000s. Aquarius is one building that I'm fine with in 99, but typically, 2000s and newer is safer. I view my job as an asset manager. The vehicle is real estate, and I want to mitigate risk for the client. And I say that to them often. So the fund is real estate, the vehicle is real estate, and I'm an asset manager.
Yep.
And how we look at this is how it's going to perform. And I want to see the client win long-term, because they're going to come back and say, hey, you know what? You were great. Hey, you were great. Here's a referral. Here's a referral. Here's a referral, because you actually care.
Yeah.
Right. And that's better than open house pickup.
Dovetailing into what you just said, as an asset manager in the portfolio as real estate, there's a million different strata companies. There's a million different stratas, right? Depending on what building you buy in and things like that. How important is strata management to these buildings, and how much value do you put on that? Where you walk into the building and say you're a buyer's agent at the time and you're in the elevator with the listing agent, you're going up the elevator. Oh, who's the strata manager? It's XYZ property management. And you go, oh, or it's ABC property, and you go, yay, kind of thing. Like,
at least you'll get a response from them. I mean, strata managers love realtors because we ask questions, and some will take their time and some will give you immediate response. It's tough because I think the strata manager is there as more of a clerk for the strata in theory, right? Yeah. They don't really provide that much value, but they don't. But I've seen stratas make some really bad decisions. There's one in Yaletown.
Strata councils?
Oh, yeah. 100%. There's one in Yaletown where they have a height restriction on a dog at 16 inches at shoulder. I had a client in there that went to sell his property and sold for $45,000 less because that first purchaser had a dog that was 1 inch too tall, and the strata would not make an exception. So I had an offer that was $45,000 higher, but that purchaser was not allowed to buy because his dog was 1 inch too tall.
Yeah.
Now, 45,000 times 400 units. Think of the math in value that the strata lost by putting a restriction on a height of a pet, right? Like that sort of stuff you look at, or ones where they're like, no pets. And you're like, well, okay, so everyone's sneaking cats in the back door anyways, but you're going to have no pets, and you're going to lose buyers, right? I always look at it like, if you're going to buy an asset in a property in residential, when you go to sell, how is that going to perform? right? Not what it's going to sell like in a current market. How's that going to perform in any market? Hot market, soft market, what have you. If you go to sell, you want the biggest funnel of buyers. It's that simple.
But it's also a fine line you walk, right? Because you want to put some of the boundaries in, I think, with your bylaws for a building, right? You want to preserve the building, the integrity, all these things. But like you say, you don't want to make a outlandish kind of demand that dogs can't be more than 18 inches tall, that kind of thing, right?
You know, reading through Strata docs, you get to learn the personality of the strata. One of my other favorite things to do when touring with buyers is going up the elevator. I take pictures of all the notices up on the elevator wall, all the little white paper on the corkboard, you know, people complaining about theft, or are they having a community barbecue or things, and you get to learn this is a pretty spicy place, or, you know, people complaining, you know, somebody's let their dog pee in here for the 15th time in a row. You get to learn some pretty.
You can see it pretty quickly in the elevator or in the lobbies for sure, by the mail rooms. Yeah.
Talking about preservation of these buildings and bylaws and all these sorts of things. City of Vancouver, love them, hate them, or indifferent. We now have the rule for no Airbnbs. What's your take on that with condos downtown? Like, we got FIFA coming, and I'm sure everyone in their
I just rented my house to a family from Ireland for FIFA for 3 weeks, and we're going to Europe as of middle of June.
There you go.
Yeah,
we're doing the same thing.
Yeah. We just signed the lease last night.
Nice. So what do you make of that from the condo perspective, say downtown? It's obviously affected the real estate market a bit, but what's your kind of view on it, or where do you see the pros and cons of it?
The reality is, and this is where, love it or hate it, this is the black and white. City of Vancouver was always a 30-day minimum term in residential zoning. Okay. So Airbnb was technically never legal.
Right.
Everyone was operating in this gray area, and there were lots of people saying, hey, that building's Airbnb friendly. Let's buy there. So there were certain buildings, because the councils typically were younger owners.
Like the towers above TNT there.
Yeah. I own in there. We didn't Airbnb our unit. It's tough because Airbnb, when you look at it, for big events like FIFA, right, for the Olympics and the rest, like we rented our place in España. We rented our place during the Olympics to one of the presidents of Molson. Okay. And so I was like, cool, that's a good amount of money. We're out. We'll go live with grandma. But yeah, it was one that the rental on Airbnb, the short-term rental, if it's principal residence, I got no issue with it. If somebody wants to say, hey, you know what, I'm going out of town and I wouldn't mind making a few bucks to pay for my vacation. But the challenge was the City of Vancouver bylaws was always a 30-day minimum term. So anyone that was operating in there thinking that they were some ace super host and they were doing this, they were operating in space that was never legal to begin with. So it's tough. I did not ever sell one purchaser into an Airbnb building. I was never a proponent of it because I was like, guys, your underlying bylaw in the City of Vancouver isn't allowable from the get-go. So you're going to run out at some point, and then what happens?
You're a big believer in the larger strata and things like that because it diminishes how much you owe in fees monthly and yearly and things like that. When you go into, some of these newer developments in the Tri-Cities, and I know that's not your area of focus, it's not our area of focus primarily, but some of these developments in the Tri-Cities have like 6 bowling lanes and 2 pools and a podcast studio.
I hope they're a master plan community because that sounds expensive.
Well, all this stuff, right? Do you see that in downtown more, it's, a little bit more subtle with what the amenities are, especially in the new construction, things like that. How much does that pay dividends? Is that an asset to these stratas? Is that an asset for resale values?
It's tough. Look at Vancouver House. I mean, they took the gym out of the strata, and the strata pays Westbank $250,000 a year to use their own gym.
Right.
So it depends how the disclosure statement's written too. Right. Yeah. That's the thing. There's so much finite detail at the end of the day in a strata. I view every strata as individual company and how it's managed and how it's run. So I kind of look at the downtown as like, okay, these are all stocks. Who's a blue chip, who's not performing, stay away from, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's tough because I think amenities go back when Beach Crescent was being built out, for example, in Yaletown, and people really loved the idea of amenities. I wish more developers built guest suites. That's the one thing that they've all miffed on downtown.
Yeah, and they used to have them. In Toronto has a lot of them.
And Toronto's got garbage chutes, and then people are like, oh, well, that building in Vancouver has a garbage chute. Why don't we? And it's like, our building code didn't allow it then, our fire safety code and all the rest. So yeah, it's one that I think, you know, the concept of like podcasts and you see these study rooms. I was just in a building in Burnaby and like they've got all these kind of like funky little music rooms and different things. And it's like, okay, well, wouldn't you have been better instead of doing a music room to actually make that a guest suite?
Yeah.
Right. Like that to me makes way more sense to carve out 200 square feet with a bathroom and a little kitchenette. I don't understand why every strata doesn't have a guest suite.
You know, that's up to the strata later, but really what this is all about was attracting buyers.
100%.
That was a developer like in and out in a project. They want to market a project, sell it out, move on to the next.
Look how Concord built King's Landing, right? It was literally marketed for the downsizer. You had private garages, you had a whole health club attached to it. Mm-hmm. And so like, it was like, oh, wow, like I can leave my neighborhood because I have everything in my building.
Yeah.
It's just with the cost of land, you know, the parking relaxations and the rest, you won't get that type of product built again.
In King's Landing, that was Concord, right?
Yeah.
And that was an interesting story about kind of the whole garage setup and the
Terry, I wanted to
who's
get
the
to that.
the president of Concord had something kind of top secret bat cave kind of going on in there.
Yeah. I mean, my father was a pre-sale purchaser in there. So it was funny because the building had completed in 2005 and, a whole bunch of the men got together because people were complaining of noise and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. So a group of them got together on a Friday night or so when they went down to the garages to figure out where this humming was. And they ended up walking around the garages with, you know,
pitchforks
flashlights.
and lanterns.
Yeah, 100%. And they zeroed in on one garage and they knocked on the door because they could hear sound. And there was the CEO of Concord Pacific ripping gas powered go-karts at about midnight on a Friday night. Yeah, this one, I mean, it may look like a 2-car garage, but inside was probably the cavity of a 36-car garage.
We're not talking about a guy starting a go-kart and revving the engine in a garage.
No, we're talking about racing go-karts.
Door opening up,
doing laps,
and being like, "Hey, that's not a garage. That's a whole half acre of go-kart track sitting underground that nobody understood was even there because the developer is, in my opinion, awesome, and I want to be his friend. He built this secret go-kart track underground, and it was hidden behind his own personal garage door."
What's kind of like the craziest things you've seen in a development or a condo, or what's some wild stuff that you've seen? Yeah.
I mean, you know, you get into the level of like I don't want to say FU money, but FU money.
Yeah.
And you just see stuff that people have endless budgets.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, there's ones where, you know, the developer, the contractor has got it so that if the owner is on his boat, he can press a button and the tiki torches around his rooftop patio light up. You know, so there's like fun little trinkets for sure.
Yeah.
The bulletproof glass in Calvin Ayers suite was pretty rad.
Yeah.
Right. When you touch an old card on the floor and all of a sudden bulletproof glass comes across with dice etched in the glass.
What was the bulletproof glass for? Like, I'm trying to envision what this room was or was it?
Yeah. I mean, it was a full floor penthouse. He pissed the Strata off and took about 3 years rebuilding it, but he had the endless money.
Yeah.
And so on the west side of the unit, he had built a dance club. Oh. And so he had a DJ deck and, you know, full bar set up. Like this was going to go all night long and all weekend long.
Strata
and then, yeah, but he's up on the top. So maybe he didn't get the noises, but then back on what would be the southwest corner is where the primary bedroom was. And so the primary bedroom, the dressing area, the 10-person bathtub, right? The 6-person shower. I mean, the parties that those walls could tell, right? Pam Anderson was in there and all the rest, like insane at the end of the day. He had it set up that he could lock off his bedroom was the purpose of that glass door.
Oh, okay.
So because obviously he had fancy watches and probably tons of cash and everything else under the sun. So
got it.
The idea was that if people were dancing in the club section of his penthouse, that people wouldn't have access because on a Friday night in Yaletown, I'm sure he made lots of friends, right? If he's going to have 50 people back at his house for an all night dance party.
Does he still own it or did you sell it or?
No, I was never part of that. That was before my time.
Oh,
that was before my time. But yeah, he sold it for less than what he spent on the renovation.
Right.
But I think he just had to get out of country.
When you go that crazy with custom finishing, let's call it, or renovating to a very, very specific level, you're never getting that money out.
And you're just doing it for yourself, right? So, you know, this is like you're making hundreds of millions of dollars a month. You're doing it for what you want or whatever the designer tells you. And you're like, yep, nope, yep. And so, I mean, rooftop hot tub, the outdoor showers, all that jazz. Like, I mean, I'm sure the staircase alone cost him $500,000.
I look at a lot of this stuff, like you say, like we were kind of saying, like the study rooms and a podcast studio and a golf simulator and all that kind of stuff. And I go, yeah, day one, or when the building's brand new and there's the 4 putters and the golf clubs all lined up and the screens on, just talking about kind of a golf simulator. Fast forward 3 years, there's holes in it. The golf clubs are all broken. There's shit everywhere.
The bowling alley's broken.
The bowling alley's broken, things like that. And where I'm kind of going with this is Vancouver doesn't have a lot of them. But the one building I think of is Jameson House. And they have the self-parking garage like they have in Japan and stuff, right? Colin's never sold a unit in there, but I have heard absolute horror stories out of that parking system. And I had a client about 2 years ago who ended up buying a different unit in Cole Harbour. He was looking, I showed him I did show him 2 or 3 units in Jameson. And I just said, this whole parking thing, we went and saw it. And I just said, I'm not getting a good feeling. Same kind of thing as the golf simulator where I'm like, this shit's going to go wrong.
Dude, tell me how Oak Ridge is going to turn out when you've got 4,000 cars being self-parked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was there for the development of that, and some of my really, really good friends, including the best man at my wedding, were launching that project. And so I remember going through the display suites and learning all about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And watching the videos and renderings of how that. And I'm like, if you watch the security cameras at my house, when I come home or leave the house, I forget something in my car 3 times. You usually see me running back and forth from the house to the garage to get something. But imagine you pull into this elevator, unload your groceries or whatever you want from your car, walk away into the other elevator, and then your car gets like a vending machine brought up, parked in a spot, and you're like, shit, I forgot something in the car. It's a whole process, but it was all for pre-sale. Like the developer markets it, puts these flashy videos up, and then they get their money and they're gone. Like I have one of those condos I bought 20 years ago out in Morgan Creek, and it's got an outdoor pool. It's got all those amenities. And it was simply because downtown, you just don't have the space. You can sell out units because of the location. And when I'm watching $800,000 condos sell downtown with no amenities, and then I'm like, oh, look at Morgan Creek. For $350,000, I can buy this place that's twice the size, and I've got a whole intra-west resort in my complex. Yeah, I'll buy that. The commute makes sense. And that's all it was. And then the second we completed on that, I looked out the window and they were building the same thing across the street, but it had an underground hockey rink in it, in the building. And I was like, man, I'm an idiot.
It's tough, man. The developers always kind of one up to each other. And then my worry with this is interesting about pre-sale, because there's a lot of people that are pre-sale experts, right? A lot of realtors that were pre-sale experts. And like, I can look in the last 5 years, I sold 1 pre-sale. That client is up 50% on his money. But the concept of pre-sale scares the bejesus out of me.
Just that you're buying off a sheet of paper.
No, because you walk into a high expensive tenanted place where the developers put $4 million in TI and everything looks bloody beautiful. And then fast forward 6-7 years later and you get property and you're like, huh? If you want to talk, if you want to talk under
a sheet of paper,
but you're buying off a sheet of paper with the best renderings in a space of a very nice luxury fashion store, and you're very excited about it, and then you get it delivered to you years later, and you're like, that photo and this photo, like this did not age well, honestly. So it's nice for the purchaser to be able to walk through what they're buying.
We sat in on a town hall for District North Vancouver a few months ago, actually, and we were in support of it. Richard Developments is doing the towers down by the Petro-Canada here at Capilano Marine, right? And it was quite inspiring to hear their presentation on, because Shard they do rental. That's their kind of model that they've shifted to in the last 15 years or so, right? And this project they were speaking about was very heartfelt, and it was very interesting because, yes, the cities or municipalities demanded it, but there's going to be, I think, 40 units allocated to abused women with children. And then there's a hotel component. And then there's just the demand, like you said, for the rental. And who's, working at Shell gas station or the Starbucks or schools, doctors, nurses, all these people that our prices have gotten so crazy. In order for communities to be sustainable and have longevity and be successful, there needs to be that rental component to it as well. So I was very much, we buy and the three of us sitting here, we all buy and sell real estate. That's how we provide for our families and everything. But at the same right, I was a believer and a supporter of it because people who can't afford should still be able to live in an area they want to live and give to the community a good benefit.
For sure. It's tough if the mandate is to have a certain percentage always done. And it's tough to have the private sector be responsible for building housing that maybe could be done by some of the public side. It will never be an easy jigsaw to solve at the end of the day.
No. Yeah.
But that's it. Like, I think if you're doing a master plan site, there should be aspect. And by doing so, don't be naive to the fact that the developer is getting further density by doing this. So it's a bit of tit for tat, right?
Whether a buyer uses you for a condo downtown or they use Colin or myself or anyone, off the top of your head, what are some key red flags in any building?
I think what you've got to look at is capital cost expenditures.
Okay.
And where buildings are, life material cycle, if you would. I think the BC government was very smart to have brought out depreciation reports when they did. People prior would ask for an engineer's report and hope, to get an understanding. The depreciation reports make good sense because it helps the uneducated consumer realize that every material has a lifespan. Now, the depreciation report is not a hardline Bible of exact dates that window is going to go, much like a car.
No,
right?
It's like taking your car to a mechanic and having an inspection done.
100%. So a window doesn't necessarily fail every 40 years, right? So it's like, okay, what are the costs that are going to be concerning where they have to levy it to a point where these are going to be larger out-of-pocket expenses?
Much the same too in detached housing, right? You're looking at a house for a client and you're going, okay, that roof, it's cedar and it's near the end of its lifespan. And that's going to be a capital expenditure that my clients, if they purchase this home, are going to need to allocate funds towards down the road. It's just on a different scale, obviously.
But I think the problem with the condo purchasers is that people assumed because there was a monthly maintenance fee, that maintenance was being done.
Right.
Right. Because it's like, well, then what's this $700 a month maintenance fee or $500 a month maintenance fee? Right. So I think when you look at the condo projects, like it's one thing when we bought our house, we put solar and a new roof on our house and it cost me $70,000. So, and that was on the more expensive end at the end of the day. But the challenge is when you look at a building, okay, if it's a tower and you're going to paint it, your paint cost is going to be probably $1.5 million.
Right.
Right. So the numbers are big when you're dealing with strata.
Yeah.
One of my major things in terms of red flags, I think membranes are a huge one that people often overlook. Because if you think of how we're built, okay, so you've got this podium to a high rise, but if there's roof deck membranes or membranes above the parkade, above concrete, the building code requires the developer to do the building to the provincial building code. But when a strata has to redo a membrane, you're talking about pulling up like thousands of pounds of vegetation and dirt and exposing concrete and resealing concrete and the rest. Like it's extremely laborious. And it's extremely costly at the end of the day. So to me, like the big ones, roofs are pretty easy. Roofs on a high rise aren't that scary.
Giant.
It's an inverted roof system. You're going to pull the pea gravel, you're going to pull the insulation, and you're going to redo it and put it back down. But realistically, kind of once you hit that 20-year lifespan of a building, then it's like, okay, where are they on membranes? Are they doing spot repairs? Where are they on, a painting project? Because realistically, you should be painting a building every 15 years. It's not for a look. It's to actually prevent spalling.
Preserve it, yeah.
Right? You think of concrete, there's a ton of rebar in the concrete. And in our climate, being near the ocean, you want to make sure that the spalling doesn't occur.
Yeah.
So you should be resealing that concrete at the end of the day and a thick viscous paint. So it's painting projects, it's membranes. Elevators are costly at the end of the day. And elevators take a long time too. If a building's redoing elevators, that can be up to a year if parts and all the rest, especially during COVID, like the supply chain issue. So elevators are a disaster. If you've got one elevator running, you're in a 30-story tower. Well, you might as well get used to walking up and down stairs.
Well, I've enjoyed hanging out with you. And
man, this has been awesome.
Getting to know you.
Where can the people find you? How do they reach out if they got all things questions for your real estate portfolio?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, YVRglobal.com. So like the airport global.com. Yeah. And otherwise I'm at 135 Davie Street, Monday to Friday. You won't find me there on weekends, but
Can they find you on the Instagram? Where do they find you?
Yeah, they can find me at Brian Higgins _prec.
Okay.
I don't know that is allowed under the Marketing Act with the whole prec thing, but
we'll just ignore that.
I'm not going to change my handle. I've had a couple weird guys reach out to me, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not changing that because it doesn't have the little asterisks and.
Well, the asterisk.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, you're not allowed
I call
to.
it the star.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to on Instagram rules for a handle.
Oh.
I'm like, I can't change that. I'm not changing that now.
Yeah.
But c'est la vie.
Gotcha.
All right.
Okay, man.
Cool,
This has been
gentlemen.
awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks guys.
for giving us your time.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks for hanging out with us. And remember, in Vancouver real estate, nothing's off the table and everything's negotiable. Subscribe now to The Real Estate of Things wherever you get your podcasts.